everybody! Today's video is a redo of the color mixing video, but this one's more geared toward older kids or adults, and I'm just gonna go more in depth into the color mixing and color relationships. So it's a lot more of a learning experience. I encourage you to do this along with me because it's really handy to have a color chart around when you're painting or drawing or doing other color-based works, because you can glance at it and it can help you decide what colors to use to make a more successful composition. So let's get started. Okay, so I have here my badly and quickly sketched out color wheel that we're going to be filling in. And then over here I have just some plastic that I have laying around. They make these really awesome mixing palettes of paper. It's like something like this where it's bound together, but it's these kind of plasticky sheets for mixing your paints on, and then you can just throw it away. So I have some gouache here. Gouache is kind of like watercolor, but it's more opaque. And so I've got some gouache here that we're going to be using, and I've just got a paintbrush, a palette knife. I have much better palette knives, but I'm not exactly sure where they are. And then I have just a cup of water for rinsing out my paintbrush and a paper towel. You got it? Okay. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is you might notice that I have more than just 5 colors here like I had in the children's color mixing video. So one thing that I didn't learn until college, but that made a lot of sense, is that you need more than one red, more than one yellow, and more than one blue to mix all the colors, which nobody ever told me, but it makes perfect sense. Let's cut to our color wheel. So this is the color wheel chart that I made with the kids the other day. We need to talk for a second about warm colors and cool colors. So to identify warm colors, you think about colors that have yellow in them. Think about summer. Think about heat, fire. So when I think about fire, I think about yellow, orange, yellowy orange, red, orangey red, and then actually this kind of warm green down here because it's mixed with yellow. So these are all warm colors. And then when you talk about cool colors, you're thinking about colors that have blue in them. Think about ice and cold water and chills. So that's going to be blue. The bluish purple, the purple. This one's actually warm because it's got more red in it than blue. Blue, and then this kind of teal color, and then our green is actually a cool green too. So it can get a little tricky, but when you look at a color, to identify whether or not it's warm or cool, you think, is this color more yellow or more blue? And I'll explain that when we go back to our mixing. All right, so what I've got here are 2 different colors of red. We've got a cool red and a warm red. Now right now, you might think, those look the same, Stina. And yeah, the labels do kind of look the same. They're, this one's like a little bit pinker, but the labels do kind of look the same. But when we put them out on our mixing block, move all these. You can see that they're actually not the same. You see that? This one's a lot more orange than this one is. So this is a warm red and this is a cool red. Usually in terms of paint, a warm red is gonna be called like scarlet and a cool red is gonna be called more of a crimson or an alizarin crimson. So every primary color actually has a warm and a cool. So for yellows, we've got a warm and a cool yellow. So you can see this one's more on the cool side because it's kind of more citrusy looking. And this one looks more like your primary yellow. So let me show you that. I'm gonna put the warm yellow underneath the warm red. And I'm gonna put the cool yellow underneath the cool red. I have not used these in a while, and you can see they're kind of separating. So you can tell there's a big difference between these two yellows, isn't there? The warm yellow, which is on this side, is a lot closer to orange than this yellow. And then the same goes for blue. So I actually had to dip into a watercolor for this one. So my gouache set only had one blue. Crazy gouache people. So there's cool blue, which is ultramarine, and a warm blue, which is called phthalo. And again, I'm gonna put the warm blue underneath the warm yellow, although the blues are so dark, they just basically look like black. So this one might not be as dramatic to tell the difference, but you'll be able to tell on the paper when I paint it. Okay, let me pick up my palette again. All right, so here we go. Yeah, these basically look the same, but trust me, they're very, very different. Phthalo, which is the warm blue, is a lot closer to like a midnight blue, or like you can see it has more like greenish tones, and the ultramarine is a lot closer to like a cobalt, cool blue. So I'm going to show you on the paper here. Really, every time we're talking about a primary color, we need to divide it in half, because your colors are going to turn out funky if you don't use the right warm or cool primary to make your colors. So that's why sometimes when you mix, especially with purple, I remember realizing this a lot as a kid when I was trying to mix purple paint, it always turned out kind of dull. It's still purple, but it's more dull than the bright purple I was trying to make. So I'm going to put half, I've split my red. This is gonna be red, this is gonna be yellow, and this is gonna be blue. I've split them in half, so I'll do cool red on this side, warm red on this side. You may be wondering, Stina, which one do I put on which side? Well, it just has to do with what color you're gonna mix it with. So you're just gonna kind of have to take my word on this one. So I've had my first mishap, embarrassingly enough. I'm doing this upside down so that the video looks right to you guys, and I put my warm red and my cool red on the wrong sides. So I'm gonna do it again. Try this again here. We'll just pretend like everything looks okay and that Stina actually knows what she's doing, which everyone knows is just a big fat lie. All right, so there's my warm red, and you'll really be able to tell how different these two colors are once you get them side by side. And with the white of the paper really helping to bring out the brightness in them. There we go. All right, so you can see they're very different reds. This is the warm red on this side. This is the cool red on this side. So now I'm going to do the yellows, I'm gonna face the warm yellow toward the warm red because that's gonna help us make the most successful orange. And this is just a template I made up really quickly. I'm sure you can come up with a much better one on your own. And you can even incorporate shapes. It does not have to be a circle. Okay, so that was the warm red, the warm yellow. So I'm gonna put the cool yellow on this side. And you can really see how different they are. Okay, that's a big difference there. The warm orange up against the cool, the warm yellow up against the cool yellow almost already looks orange. But that's just because colors are relative to each other. And then the same with the blue. So I'm gonna put the cool blue facing the cool red. I gotta mix in that oil here because I haven't used these in a while. There it is, nice cool blue. Always reminds me of Pete the cat. Oops, my brush just jumped out of my hands. And then I'm just gonna put the warm blue, if I can get it to break down here, on the other side. All right, and the warm blue is one of my favorite colors. It's almost like in crayons, it would be called cerulean, but it's paint, so we're gonna call it phthalo. Okay, so even though on the palette, the two kind of look almost the same, you can see here that they're actually pretty different. Although still not as different as the yellows. Okay, so we will mix the blue on this side closest to the red and the red closest to the blue to get a really nice purple. So just for illustration purposes, I'm going to mix the warm red, which is this one, with the right blue to show you what would happen, you know, if you weren't using the proper tints. And then I'll mix appropriately for our color wheel. So I'm going to just take a little warm red and put it here so we know what we're doing. And a cool blue here. Cool blue magic sunglasses. Pete the cat people out there know what that's all about. Okay, I'm just gonna scoop a little bit of warm red there. And scoop a little bit of cool blue here. A little bit more. So when you're mixing, you always start with your lighter color first. And that's because the darker colors are gonna make more of an impact. So if you need to lighten it up, it'll take a lot more paint to lighten it than it will to darken it. So you always start with your lighter color first. And then you see, even though I'm mixing gouache and there's not very much of it, I'm not mixing with my paintbrush because then the paint ends up in the bristles of the paintbrush and I lose some of it in the process. But if I mix with a palette knife, I keep all my paint. I only lose that little residue that's on the knife. All right, so this is the purple that comes out of mixing the warm red with the cool blue. It's not bad. I mean, it's still purple. It's actually a really pretty color, but if you're trying to get a violet, well, that's just gonna be disappointing, isn't it? So let's mix them. Let's now mix the appropriate colors, which would be the cool red with the cool blue. And so you also don't necessarily mix even amounts. Sometimes you're going to use more of one color than the other to get the desired hue that you're looking for. So don't be concerned if you're not using equal amounts. It's actually pretty normal because that's how we end up with such an array of colors. Okay, so this is the color you get when you use the right hues, the cool blue and the cool red. And you see how different that is from what we got down there. And you can see it on the palette as well. Get a little more water here. It's not wanting to spread around. I actually probably needed a little bit more blue. Let me just break my own rules here. There we go. See, I did that, and now the color is all in my bristles and not, I don't have as much left on my palette. So, I broke my own rule. Don't do that. All right, there's a nice purple. So you can see even on the palette how different these two colors are. This one's a lot more vibrant of a purple over here than this one. And again, this one was using both of the cool red and the cool blue, and this one was using a cool blue and a warm red. Still a nice color, but not as vibrant. And I've got a little test swatch down here. So, although in hindsight, I probably should have put it closer to the purple, but I didn't. Okay, so let's move on. So, oh my gosh, I need to backtrack. So we've got our primary colors, which I think I mentioned, red, yellow, and blue. We learned that early on in life, and now we're mixing the secondary colors. So we learned in elementary school, red and blue make purple, but what we're doing here is a primary and a primary makes a secondary. So now we're gonna make our next secondary color, which is red and yellow makes orange. But we need to use the two of them that are facing each other. So the warm red and the warm yellow make the best orange. So again, I'm gonna do a swatch up here where I use the proper yellow, the warm yellow, but I'm gonna use the cool red over here so you can see the difference. So just rinse off my knife. And you can use any paint for this. I just happen to have gouache. I've got a lot of acrylic somewhere. Just not exactly sure where it is. All right, broke my rule here. Okay, so I'm gonna use the warm yellow. So I'm gonna start with my lightest color and then put in the cool red. And you see, I put in too much red already and it's really, really red. So I'm gonna put in a little bit more of the yellow. So I should have taken a smaller bite, if you will, of the yellow. Okay, so there's a good orange. So, when you use a warm yellow, which I've got up there, but you use the cool red, you end up with this orange. Sorry, I had to add some water, it was drying up. Which again, not really that bad of an orange. It's a nice kind of pumpkin-y orange. But it is a little less vibrant than the orange is gonna be when we use the right red. So again, start with my warm red. Scoop it up, move it over here. So I'm gonna use the warm, that was the warm yellow. So I'm gonna use the warm red. It's still a little too red. I'm gonna grab the rest of this yellow. I might have to get some more yellow out. So whenever I'm doing a project, I just get little bits of color at a time because you can always squeeze more out of the tube, but you can't really get it back in the tube if you don't use it all. So to keep from wasting as much paint, I just squeeze out little bits at a time. All right. So there's the bright orange. So I'll paint that on right there. Actually might need to make that a little bit more red. There we go. You see how much more vibrant this is than our other one. Our other one almost looks like we mixed brown into it, which we didn't, if you'll recall. But it's still a nice color. It's more of like a burnt orange. So you can use that knowledge to your advantage, certainly. Okay, so you can see here on the palette, let me get my little white paper back there behind it, how different these two oranges are. You see how this one kind of looks like we may have mixed brown into it, but you saw me do it, so you know we didn't. But that's just because we used a cool red, and this one we used the warm red with the warm yellow, which is what you should do. So now we've got purple. Some textbooks say violet. I don't really think it matters, but to each their own. So we've got purple, we've got orange, and now we need to make a green. Here's where things get a little confusing. So to make the best green, we're actually gonna take opposite. So we're gonna do a warm blue and a cool yellow. So that's where the rule goes out the window. And then just like everything else, I've got a swatch up here where we're using the proper yellow, the cool yellow, but we're gonna use the warm, the cool blue. Let me fix that. So you can see kind of the more muddy green that you would get. So let's do the wrong way first. So I'm gonna start with my lighter color, which is the cool yellow, but I'm gonna use the cool blue too. And trust me, you don't need much blue at all. And you get a really nice olivey kind of green, which I mean, I'm not disputing, it's a really pretty color. It's just not bright. And so if you were mixing something like Play-Doh, well, it worked okay with Play-Doh, but if you were mixing just a set of regular paints like in school, this green might not be the green that you're actually wanting. All right, let's see. So cool yellow and cool blue makes kind of a army green, a Ninja Turtle green is what it reminds me of, Ninja Turtles. Must be because I have small children. Okay, so now let's do it properly. Let's use the cool yellow and the warm blue, which doesn't seem to make sense, but trust me, it does. Wow, look at the difference there. That is pretty. Okay, I got too much blue. That's almost more of a teal color. So let me just add a little bit more of the cool yellow. I'm just gonna kind of squeeze that. Oh, just gonna kind of squeeze it there, and I'll put some more on my palette. There we go. Nice, bright green. Wow, what a difference. You see that difference there between these two? Which that one's kind of faded because I used the paint, but you can tell that's more of an army green and this is more of a bright Kelly green. That one might expect to be mixing if they were trying to make green. So you see, what they don't teach you in grade school is that, yes, there are 3 primary colors. That's true. But you need a warm and a cool of each primary color in order to properly get the color range in your control. And then you can see these colors out here are what happens when you incorrectly mix them and you get kind of muddied colors. So primaries, red, yellow, blue. Secondaries are purple, green, and orange. So now we're going to mix what's called the tertiary colors. So we mixed 2 primaries to get a secondary. Now we mix a primary and a secondary to get a tertiary. With me so far? I hope so. So I'm just gonna keep going. All right. Clean off my knife. So I'm going to need some more paint. So I've got a cool red and a purple here. So I'm just going to, that's white. Oops. So I've got a cool red and a purple here. So I'm going to mix those together to get that tertiary color. In terms of crayons, like growing up, I would definitely call this a red violet. You know, they're really original with that name there, but I mean, that's what it is. It's red mixed with violet. Am I right? And again, if you use the wrong red, this is not gonna turn out to be the color you wanted. Get a little bit more cool blue there. Especially when using blue, you really don't need that much. Just take a little bites. Put a little bit more. Because the blue will overwhelm your color really easily. There we go. All right. Now paint in our circle. Woo, my paintbrush turned green. All right. Get it all in there. We'll paint in this circle. Get a little water. The thing with gouache and watercolor is you really got to keep them wet or else they just don't move. They just stay there. So you see the purple just really darkened up this red and gave us a real nice red violet color. The step just in between those. Okay. So now I'm gonna keep going on and I'm going to mix these two, which is the cool blue and the purple. So I guess I need to remake our purple because it dried. All right, and this is gonna get you guessed it, blue purple. So original. So keep mixing blue. I've gone past the purple I had and now I'm going into blue purple territory. There we go. A little more water. All right, so you can see it's, I think we need a little more blue, don't you? You can see, but not really. There I am, improperly mixing again. There we go. That's better. The other one still had too much red. So even though I'm mixing with purple, all I'm actually doing is remixing the cool red and the cool blue in different proportions. This one's more red and less blue. This one's roughly equal, but not quite. And then this one is way more blue and a little less red. Okay, everyone with me? So now we're gonna move on. So we're gonna take now these two right here. So we're gonna take green and warm blue. And always important to clean off the knife so that we don't contaminate. So I'm going to take some green over here and just add even more warm blue to it. And that's going to make my favorite color. So pretty. Teal. Some people would call that turquoise, but they're wrong. We will see turquoise later once we do tints. Turquoise is actually teal mixed with white. All right. Oh man, it's so pretty. That's just the best color if you ask me. All right. Here we have it. What is, in my opinion, the best color in the color wheel right here. Now, we've mixed these two. So now we're gonna come and mix green with cool yellow. And again, you wanna start with your lightest color. This is especially important when you're mixing with yellow and with white, because if you get them too dark, it's a lot harder to bring it back. So there's yellow. Just gonna mix a little bit of the green. And we get a really pretty lime. I just love color mixing. Okay, it's important to clean everything thoroughly so that we don't contaminate our colors. Oh, look at that, you guys. It is so pretty. Okay, so just like with the purple side, this is really just different proportions. So this one is mostly blue with a little bit of yellow. This one's roughly equal. And this one is much more yellow and very little blue. Now we complete it with the oranges. Yeah, oranges. Speaking of oranges, my kids have been going through the fruit like nobody's business. Does that happen to anybody else? Just me? All right, so I've added some water to my orange to try to help it. I don't know, I might have to mix up some more. Wash off my knife. Now, so I'm going to take my warm yellow and my orange. Warm yellow. Get it. Just stick a little tiny bit of red here. Oops, that was a lot of red. My badness. So I need to add in some more orange. I mean yellow. My goodness, Tina. Get it together. All right. So there we have a nice yellowy orange. And you can see when you're mixing, you kind of visually compare the different circles and make sure you're getting a color that falls kind of in between. So if it looks like you're too close to one of your starter colors or parent colors, then you would keep mixing. Like it was a little too close to just this warm yellow, so I added a little bit more red. Still pretty close though. Okay, and then we're going to mix these two, the warm red and the orange. And again, I've already said this, but I'll say it again. If you were to choose the cool red, you would just get a different look, different color, which you can do at your discretion because you're the artist. But it won't turn out exactly the way that you might be expecting. Right, get out my brush. Ooh, There we go. It was almost too, orange. Okay. And there we have it. We have mixed our entire color wheel. And again, just like we talked about, the colors on this side, so from lime green all the way around to this red violet, these colors are warm colors, and conversely, these colors on this side, from purple to green, are generally considered to be cool colors. Green can go either way, and so can red, depending on which one you're using. So, we've got our color wheel. These are the hues in their most pure state. You can then use different colors, the neutrals we call them, black, white, gray. Some people consider brown to be a neutral. And you can use these colors to alter and make even more colors. And different people like different things. So I'm actually going to totally break my rule. And I'm just gonna put black in the middle. Oh, it needs to be mixed up. Okay, I'm gonna put a little black in the middle here. Black is super duper strong, so you really only ever need a little bit of it. So here in the middle is like pure black. And then what we're gonna do is I'm going to just use straight gray. Obviously you can make your own gray by mixing black and white together, but I'm gonna use the straight gray paint to save me some time, and I'm gonna do what I told you all not to do and mix it with my brush. Stina's going crazy. All right, so in this one, okay, and there we have it. My janky version of a color wheel. So you can see as you go around, as you get closer to black, you kind of have a similar color wheel here, just darker. similar color wheel here, just more gray, and a similar color wheel out here, just more white, more light. Okay, so now that we've got our color wheel, let's talk for a minute about color schemes, and which is the whole reason that we make the color wheel to begin with. So we have some relationships already defined for us. Colors that are directly opposite from one another on the color wheel are called complementary colors, which means that they complement each other in a work of art. They'll help draw emphasis to one another. It also means that if you mix them together, you end up in a world of gray. In theory, if you have the right tones of each of your complementary color sets, you will end up with gray if you mix them. So like you can see purple and yellow are complementary. This kind of reddish orange and teal, my favorite color, are complementary, and that color scheme looks great together. Red and green, Christmas, purple and yellow, LSU. I'm sorry. But then we also have color triads. A triad, as you might guess, is based on a triangle instead of a line. So the primary colors form a triangle. That's a color triad. Conversely, the secondary colors form a triangle, which is a color triad. You can do this in a lot of different ways. They don't have to be equilateral triangles. So, for example, one of the most popular triads to do is actually called split complementary. So if I know that red and green are complementary colors, instead of using green, I'm gonna actually use the two colors on either side. So I'm gonna use red, lime, and teal. That's a triad, but it's also called a split complementary because we're not using the complement, we're using the two on each side. That color scheme looks awesome. We could do the same here. So with this bright reddish orange, the complement is teal, but I could use bright reddish orange, green, and blue as my color scheme. And when we're saying the colors, you can actually branch anywhere into the shades or anywhere into the tints. So you could say, I'm gonna use this pure bright orange, and I'm gonna use a tint of green and a dark muted blue and get a really awesome color relationship. You can also do squares here. So you can do like these four is my favorite. Lime green, teal, bright red, orange, and red violet is a great 4 colors to go together, but you can rotate that and do squares all over the color wheel. So you can use this as a tool to really put together some nice compositions, and I'm gonna do that in a few videos. I've got some watercolors to do, so before I start, I'll talk about choosing my colors and their relationships within this color wheel. The last thing that I wanna do before I leave you guys is up here I've got little a grid where I'm going to start with sets of complementary colors and fade them toward each other to see what kinds of grays we get. So I'm gonna choose, I guess I need to mix up some more colors. Let me wipe off my start with the orange, put a little bit of water. I'm gonna paint it right here in the square. Okay, so there's the pure hue of this red-orange color. Then I'm gonna do the pure hue of my favorite color, teal, over here. Isn't it beautiful? All right. So what I'm gonna do is slowly mix the two together and meet in the middle, which should be a grayish color. So I'm gonna start on the teal side. I'm gonna mix with my brush, which I told you all not to do. But I'm gonna start with mostly teal, just a little bit of orange, which gets me ever so slightly kind of green, you know, which makes sense because orange has yellow in it and this is yellow and blue, so it makes sense that it would kind of edge it more toward the green. So then I'm gonna scoop a little bit more orange, which is gonna get me more green, but it's going more into the middle of our color wheel. So it started here, it kind of edged this way, but came down. Like I'd say we're probably here-ish. And I'm gonna do one more swipe with even more orange and mix it in. A little bit more water here. So I still want this side to be mostly the teal. Don't want to end up in the middle just yet. Okay. So you see that? Got a progression here from pure hue into kind of a muddied, muted green. So now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to start with mostly orange, a little bit of water in there. And I'm just going to take a little bit, mix it so that's kind of edged us down into toward the middle of our color wheel there. Now I'm gonna grab even more. May have gone too far there. Oh no, still mostly orange. Okay, and so that's really muting us down and bringing us into the brown family. I'm gonna add even more. Now we're, oh, I probably went too far on that one. Let me just add in a little bit more. That was a little too far. There we go. Still a pretty hard step there, if you ask me. All right, and then I'm gonna see what happens if I can just mix equal parts. See if I can get pretty close to a neutral gray. Getting a neutral gray is really difficult. I'm not gonna say it's impossible.
What if you can come to our house, their house? Here's my toys.
So I'm pretty close here to a neutral gray. Not quite there, but pretty close. So now I can adjust my squares here because that's not right. And this one's not right either. There. See? I obviously went way too far into the teal with one. All right, so here we have our progression of complementaries from one to the other. And you can see they kind of pass through a grayish zone and back to the other. So look at, there's some really beautiful colors in here. I mean, look at that one. Okay, so I would encourage you to do this on your own. Choose sets of colors and mix them together. And just see what you like, see what happens when you mix things together, and play around. I mean, the worst that happens is you make a color you don't like, right?